Mitchell Bouchard here, and welcome to another video. What we're going to do is go over the Sony FX3 video camera. And right now we're on B&H Photo. You can see the camera right there. If we cut out of here, you'll see the price. So this is the Sony FX3 full frame cinema camera. And I'm very impressed, and we're going to get into the reasons why I like it. Again, about $4,000 USD. And just by looking at some of the photos, one of the first things I noticed, you have that nice tilting screen, so it's going to be good for when you're filming by yourself, doing vlogging, other work like that. You've got the big full frame sensor. So for those of you that don't know, a full frame sensor will give you more detail, more shallow depth of field. You'll be able to utilize more of your lens, and all around, I mean, the full frame look is just beautiful, and that's what Sony's been doing so well at. And of course, I don't have this camera, so I always recommend to test or rent out the camera beforehand. If we look at the back of the camera, we got some pretty cool little features. We got the focus mag here. We have the on and off button, the menu system, but I also like the peaking and whatnot that we have here as well. So some of that stuff is pretty cool. And then what else do we have here that I like? Well, I'm liking the overall body and the compactness of the camera. I kind of like the form factor. So if you're like a wedding videographer, I think this could be a very good option for you as well. And we're going to get into some of the other photos that talk a little bit more about this camera. As you can see, you got an HDMI output there, so you can use external monitors and do other things like that. And then the one big one for this camera is look at what we have here for audio. And a lot of smaller cameras like this won't have this, but it reminds me a little bit of the Canon C100, except you're getting the 4K, more dynamic range, and a full frame sensor. So it's just this is like one of the most beautiful compact cameras that you can get for this price even. It's really amazing what we have now. I don't even know if a lot of people realize what you're getting. I mean, you got the dual SD card slots here, but I like this because you can use higher end microphones. So compared to your little microphones that you use typically, you'll be able to utilize XLR microphones. You'll be able to get better professional sound quality in there. Put a shotgun mic on the top, and this is just really cool. Reminds me just like the C100 or something like a compact, Sony FS3 or something like that. So really cool. Again, looks like it's got a touch screen as well. And then if we just go to the specs real quick, again, 4K at 120 frames per second, incredible. 715 grams, that's very light for a camera. And my favorite aspect still is going to be the size, and then the sensor type, which is going to be your full frame. And full frame is just going to give you a beautiful cinematic look with a lot of depth of field. We're just going to go over a couple other quick specs. It's 10-bit 422 and then 16-bit raw output, so that's going to fill up a lot of data. But with that 10-bit 422, which you can record to an SD card, you have to make sure you have a fast one. That's going to be really cool. So do I recommend this camera? Well, based on what I've seen, I think this camera is going to be incredible. If you're looking to upgrade, I think it's going to give you a lot of cinematic options. Again, you have 4K and 240 frames per second in HD, whereas 4K you still have 120 frames per second. But the one beautiful thing too, which you just can't deny on a camera like this, 15 stops of dynamic range. So for those of you that may not know, dynamic range is going to be the level of detail, the amount of detail you have in your midtones, highlight, and shadows. So when you go to a movie, typically you're going to have a lot, like cameras that have a lot of dynamic range. That's why a lot of projects are still shot on film. The blacks are black, the whites are very white. There's a lot of detail in every spectrum of your image, and it just looks incredible. And with Sony, you have a nice flat image. You have the 5-axis image stabilization, so you're going to be able to get nice smooth shots via handheld even. And then the low ISO, which is going to be, you can basically film in the dark with this camera. And the fact that it is full frame 2, you're just going to have that much more detail too. The bigger the sensor, typically the bigger and better the image is going to be. So I'm just impressed with this camera. Perhaps we can get our hands on one as well. And then yeah, that's what you're going to be looking for when you get this camera. But this camera just looks incredible, and yeah, I'm very impressed. So we will see you in the next video.